the Media Foundation for West Africa, MFWA, has cautioned the Ghana Journalists Association, GJA, against what it describes as attempts to undermine investigative and anti-corruption journalism in the country. This comes on the back of a statement issued by the GJA cautioning the media to refrain from destroying local entrepreneurs and local businesses in the name of investigative journalism. The GJA's call came in the wake of the Jospong Group's denial of claims that it inflated the cost of a contract it had with the Mahama government to supply waste bins. Now, I have with me here the statement from the Media Foundation for West Africa, and a part of it says the GJA statement warns against trial in the media and pronouncing certain people guilty in the media, but it fails to point to any specific instances, examples or evidence in the past or present of such trials in or by the media and pronouncement of guilty verdicts by the media against any individuals or businesses. And in another part of it, it says to the casual observer of development in the media landscape in Ghana, the GJA statement may pass as ordinary, regular or normal advisory notes from the leadership of the Journalists Association to its members. But as active and conscious observers of development in the media landscape, the content, context, timing and vagueness of the GJA statement cannot but leave us wondering as to what could have prompted and or motivated such a statement from the leadership of the association. Now, they went on to give a hint of what could have prompted this statement by saying that later in the statement, they posed some questions and said anything short of responses to the above questions which they posed will expose the statement for what it is. And what did they say it is? A propaganda piece of advisory note meant to appease and serve the interest of big businesses to stifle investigative journalism and undermine anti-corruption reporting. So those are some excerpts from the statement from the Media Foundation for West Africa. Now, the executive director for the foundation, Suleiman Abrahima, is here with me in the studio for some clarification. Mr. Abrahima, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Now, I'll go to the questions that you have for the GJA, but in the first place, what necessitated the statement?
Well, I think that what prompted our statement is captured in the very first paragraph of the statement, where we say that we are surprised to read the statement that came from the GJA. I think it's important for me to start off by saying that we as a foundation don't have anything against the GJA. The GJA is not a competitor. We cannot, we should not, and will not compete with the GJA. And I must say that as a regional organization, it's just about 5 or 10% of our work that is focused in Ghana. At the moment, we are busily engaged in other countries quite actively than we are here in Ghana. So there's nothing for us to be competing with the GJA, and we shouldn't. So what prompted this statement is our conviction that if the statement that was put out is not reacted to, it may, in one way or the other, discourage investigative journalists who are doing what, in my view, what the media and what journalists must be doing. We are all worried, and we express it, that this whole phenomenon of having radio and television stations featuring just MPP, NDC, people in a conversation, and we ended up calling it journalism, is not what will really make the impact that we want to see from the media. And so this is the first time that we are reacting this way to a statement from the GJA, and we did so because we thought the statement had the potential to discourage persons who are committed to doing investigative reporting and anti-corruption reporting. And that is why we had to put out this statement.
In what way do you think it will discourage investigative journalism?
Well, if you read the GJA statement, it says, and we make that clear in our statement, that the 38-line statement from the GJA has about 30 lines focused on cautioning investigative journalists, asking them to be mindful of, the ethics of the profession. They shouldn't wage smear campaigns in the media against businesses, particularly those that are Ghanaian-owned and individuals who are Ghanaians. They should not trial people in the media and pronounce them guilty. And all these are said without references to anything that has happened. So when you read the statement, the first question you ask yourself is, but what is prompting this? Why is the GJA all of a sudden putting out this kind of statement? And we all, as we said, we are active observers in the media landscape, and we know the recent developments around companies that have signed contracts that journalists are questioning the prudence of them. We know about the road toll issue that came up, and some journalists who stood up against it, and eventually it was abrogated or cancelled. And the question is, could this statement from the GJA be informed by that? And if it is important that they would have pointed to ethical infractions in these stories that are being put out, or pointed to evidence of an agenda to wage a smear campaign against a particular organization, a particular individual, and so on and so forth. Without that, what is the basis then? And that is why we say the context of the statement, the timing of the statement, and the fact that it is vague, without references, without examples, and without any pieces of evidence, then one can only conclude that it is coming in the wake of the reports that are being put out by some journalists, including your colleagues here in multimedia. And we thought it's important that we react to it before it causes that kind of discouragement. And remember, some media houses have already put out the GJA statement where it says journalists cautioned against destroying local businesses. Journalists warned, GJA warns journalists not to destroy businesses. So that then becomes a very fundamental piece of information that businesses and other individuals, once you do a story about a local business, they say, he's there out there to destroy a local business. And we thought that this is not a matter that we will call the GJA to express our disagreement, but we should put out a statement.
But why not do that? Because again, you are seeking a point of clarity that we do not get the context of what you're saying. So why not go directly to the GJA and seek that clarity?
No, once the statement is in the public domain, ultimately, in order to counter that or to avoid or help fight against whatever damage that it will cause, we thought that the right thing to do was to also put it out in the public domain, so that whatever discouragement that our colleagues who are doing investigative journalism would encounter would somehow be assuaged. And we know that through investigative journalism, we have had the country recovering monies from various people. We can talk about Smarties in the Bas Brandon saga. We can talk about RLG in the Jida Sada saga. We can talk about Wyoming having to refund monies to the state. And it's as a result of works done by journalists exposing these scandals, putting pressure on the system, and eventually the state is recovering these sums of money. And I think that if anything at all, we should encourage these journalists, we should inspire them, we should support them, we should promote whatever they are doing, rather than putting out a message that would let them sit down and wonder whether they are doing the right thing or not.
Now, the language of your statement at a point, and I've read it, but let me read it again for emphasis. It says that this is a propaganda piece of advisory notes, the GJA statement, meant to appease and serve the interest of the big businesses to stifle investigative journalism and undermine anti-corruption reporting here in the country. Some would call this antagonistic. Is this your view that this is what the GJA has become?
Well, we pose a number of questions, including asking what is the basis of the statement, what is the context, what is the reason, what has informed the GJA to issue, suddenly a statement like this, and who is waging a smear campaign in the media against who is trying somebody in the media, and who is the person facing the trial. And then we say that the statement ought to have addressed all these questions, and it is not late for them to provide answers to these questions. But if it doesn't, or if the GJA fails to provide answers to these questions, then of course one may conclude that it is just a propaganda piece of advisory note, because you see it is couched in a way that you read and you think that, oh, okay, it's basic advice to the media. But even if it is, what is the context?
What's wrong with basic advice to the media?
No, so the question is, what has informed that? And what is wrong with it is that as we see it and as we have said, it is something that may eventually discourage investigative journalism. Because without nothing has happened, and then you come out to say that we need not to wage a smear campaign against businesses, particularly local businesses, who are contributing towards the economy and so on and so forth. And as we have said in our statement, there cannot be any business entity that fraudulently, signs contracts with the state or in a corrupt way that at the same time can claim that they are supporting the economy or they are helping in the development of the country. And I think that we are at a critical time that investigative journalism is dying, and we need to do everything possible to support it. And we are in an era where quality journalism is challenged by a phenomenon that is referred to by experts as media capture, where big businesses are doing everything possible to ensure that their interests are served by the media. And I think that we need to do everything possible to avoid such a situation in our media here.
You've led me exactly to what I wanted to ask, because that's how you end your statement. You are saying that media capture is one of the biggest threats to quality journalism around the world. The GJA must not allow itself to become a victim of media capture by big businesses. You are suggesting here that some big businesses influence the GJA to make that statement.
Well, we are saying that it is a phenomenon that is going on around the world, including Ghana, and it has been something that has been ongoing, but now it is a big phenomenon. We have big businesses that would do anything to influence the media to set the agenda that would be in their interest. And this statement is coming at a time when some big businesses are, being reported on in an unfavorable manner through investigations done by some journalists. So why is it that it is at the same time that we are receiving this statement? And it is an advice that we believe that the GJA would not allow itself to become a victim of media capture by big businesses. So basically we are saying that this is what is happening, and we hope that you don't make yourself a victim.
So do you think that they are being influenced by anyone?
Well, I don't want to speculate, and I cannot. But again, as we have said in the statement, we caution that this is a phenomenon that is ongoing, and it's important that such an important association of journalists would not and does not allow itself to become a victim of media capture.
But you've already said it, that look, in the absence of the answers to your questions, this is a propaganda piece meant to appease big businesses. They're saying that they must not allow themselves to come. So, I mean, the jury is out, isn't it?
No, it is not. You see, in both instances, it's ifs. There are conditions to it. That these are the questions that the GJA ought to provide to the public in order to take away any suspicions that the public may have about the agenda of the statement. And if the GJA fails to provide answers to these questions, then one may assume that this is just a propaganda piece that is put out there to serve the interests of big businesses. And again, we are saying that this is a phenomenon and they must be aware so that they don't fall victim to it. I think that it's important to emphasize the earlier point I made, that for us as Media Foundation, the stronger the GJA, the better for us. As I speak now, the Media Foundation is supporting similar associations elsewhere. We have a senior staff member of the Media Foundation who has been seconded to the Gambia Press Union, for example. And she's been there for the last 3 months and may be there for the next 18 months, paid by the Media Foundation, because we see that it's an association or a media group that has to be supported in the transition processes. We are working with groups in Mali through Maison de la Presse, which is their version of the GJA in Mali. We are doing our current plan, and Ghana is not even in there. We are looking at how to support the unions in Mali,
it's a well-made point. It's a well-made point, Mr. Brima. But again, it goes back to it that given the information we have now, a strong suggestion is made that there is some influence in there, wherever it may come from.
No, but whatever it is, our statement is influenced by something. So whatever it is, you cannot put out a statement that is not influenced by anything. You can't just sit down and say, let me write something and throw it out there. Our statement, for example, is influenced by the fact that we think without reacting the way we have done, the statement from the GJA may discourage and undermine investigative and anti-corruption reporting. That is what influenced our statement. And I believe that the GJA was also influenced by something. And that is why it's... No, I'm saying that the GJA statement was also definitely influenced
I'm asking you
by
who
something.
You think it was influenced by?
For example, our statement was not influenced by anybody. It was influenced by our conscience that it is important to react. So in the case of the GJA, it could be that whether it is the president taking a unilateral decision or the leadership of the GJA sat down and thought that, well, certain things are happening and we need to, put out a statement this way. So that would have been what influenced them. Or, whatever. I don't want to speculate, but whenever you put out a statement,
some group of people seem to have been favored, may benefit from the GJA statement. Would it be safe to say that it is that group of people in the era of media capture that we have?
Well, I don't. Of course, if the GJA is warning, journalists to be very cautious, very mindful, and so on about how they report on local businesses, then of course, if the statement is allowed to stay, the beneficiaries are the big businesses. Because then if you are an investigative journalist and you decide that, or you come across some information about a local business, a local personality, you ask yourself, if I do this story, wouldn't it be seen as me trying to destroy a local business or trying to, damage the reputation of a personality? So that is what we wanted to avoid. But if it is allowed to stay, then of course the GJA statement invariably serves the interest of big businesses and big entrepreneurs.
And so it could be that they are making sure that the statement serves their interest.
Well,
that the GJA serves their interest.
I don't know what you think. Whether you think it was put out there.
Here.
Yes, and obviously, you see, it's difficult for me to do that kind of speculation. I'm not among or in the leadership of the GJA. But as I said, the statement
what does it
as
look
put
like?
out.
What does it look like now?
The statement as put out there, if allowed to stay, would serve the interests of big businesses. Whether that was done deliberately and consciously by the leadership of the GJA, or it's just a matter of coincidence that they put out a statement in a way that may serve the interest of big businesses, one doesn't know. And that is why we conclude by throwing out the caution that it is important for them to act in ways that encourages and supports investigative journalism rather than acting in ways that discourages investigative journalism. And again, it is important for them not to allow themselves to become victims of media capture by big businesses.
Do you think the GJA as an institution at the moment is serving its purpose?
Well, I am not a member, but I think that knowing what other associations are doing elsewhere, I think the GJA could do better, particularly given the environment that we are in, where the press freedom environment, not perfect, but at least we are better than several other countries in the region. Talk about Nigeria, talk about Guinea, and so on and so forth. Talk about Burkina Faso, Niger, and so on. Journalists are being attacked, are being beaten, are being harassed on a daily basis by state security agencies, by individuals, and so on and so forth. I think our situation here is better. And therefore, that opens up the environment for an association like the GJA to even do more to support journalists in the country. As I mentioned, the GPU, the Gambia Press Union, they have set up a school, to train journalists, to support journalists, to make sure that quality of journalism is improved. I believe that the GJA, for example, can do a similar thing. So they may have their own challenges, but I believe that they can do better.
And as it is now, how would you rate their performance? Let's say out of 10. 10 being best, 1 being worst.
No, I think that's a difficult question, because I don't want to say anything that would be interpreted to mean I'm trying to undermine the GJA as it is now. I know elections are due, and remember, when the elections was announced by the elections the steering committee of the GJA that was to handle the elections, we indicated our support for the process and actually said that we were committing resources to support the elections by having the leaders, the various contestants, do a public debate. And that was our own resources that we were going to commit into it, just because we feel a stronger GJA is better for us. Because even though we are based here in Ghana, our focus is not Ghana alone. Just about 5% of our work is focused on Ghana. So we will do everything to support the strengthening of the GJA. And even this statement that we have put out there is part of the processes that we think would help strengthen journalism in this country. And I believe that that is what the GJA.
But you'll be unable to give me a figure?
No, I think that's a difficult
10 over 10.
That's a difficult question.
Suleiman Abrahima, thank you very much,
thank you so much
for your time. He is the Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa.